Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Mortgage Coach Tuesday coaching call. Every Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock Pacific, we're here to connect as a community and to deliver the absolute best sales meeting in the mortgage industry. My name is Dave Savage. I'm the CEO of Mortgage Coach. If this is your first time on a coaching call, welcome. Be sure to engage, raise your hand if you have a question, post questions in the question area of GoToMeeting. But we're here to help you as loan officers deliver better advice to home buyers, borrowers, and realtors. So we're going to talk about how we're doing that, and we're going to bring in some leaders both outside the industry and inside the industry to help you. So I urge you, if you're new, connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. Network with innovators in the mortgage industry. That's who we are, and that's who we attract to these calls. Do want to remind everybody we are recording this call, so within an hour of this call, it will be uploaded into YouTube. Play it at a sales meeting, re-listen to it to nail down some talking points, scripts, ideas. If you missed last week's call with Don Getling, top loan officer in California, just north of LA, has his own radio show, has a team, is just doing extraordinary things, and he's an extraordinary guy. So really recommend that you don't miss that call if you missed it. It was a really good one. Want to bring in some stories from the Mortgage Coach community, and there was some activity on our Facebook page. I know I posted in preparation for this call just a little follow-up. How many people have watched that Todd Duncan Edge video, and what did you think of some of the scripting on that? Bryan, I didn't even think about it. I probably should have forwarded this over to you. Todd is the most senior and probably taught and trained more loan officers than anybody in our industry. He's had a big event for over 20 years, and this year will be his 21st year of sales mastery. And he was just providing some teaching and leadership around how he thinks loan officers should be having conversations with Mortgage Coach, and he actually recorded that in our community. So if you go to our app and you put in Todd Duncan, or you just go to that Facebook post and click on it from your desktop, one, it will drive you through a Mortgage Coach experience and just a great 3-minute teaching on how to do things. So one, I want to remind everybody, if you haven't been through that lesson for Todd, make sure you go through that lesson. And Tim, I would like to hear your perspectives around that as we get into the conversation. Also, I want to remind everybody, Todd Duncan's doing a 10-city tour in preparation to Sales Mastery. The first one is next Tuesday in Chicago. It's only $100, and by signing up for it, you're also getting access to some of his sales process, some of his tools for 90 days. So again, great place to be. Joe Patua, our president, and a few more members of the Mortgage Coach team will be at this particular event. If you are going to be at the event, do a shout out. Let us know you're going to be at that event. Also wanted to follow up from last week. Jeffrey Gittimer created a great Mortgage Coach lesson around why you should be giving every single home buyer a total cost. Jeffrey has some really clear philosophies around how to build trust. And so from Jeffrey Gittimer, he is giving you guys a lesson on how Mortgage Coach helps you build trust. And he's doing that in a really quick soundbite, just a great resource for your sales meeting. So we actually reposted that on YouTube. If you have not gone through that lesson, make sure that you do that. So I'm going to bring in the outside the industry guest in just a minute. First, I want to bring in Tim Lamb, one of our own. Tim is a fantastic Mortgage Coach loan officer. Just someone, when you hear him talk, you know that he cares, one, about his customers. He's got real empathy and care about doing what's right by them, and he's a winner. I mean, he plays to win. This guy is a hard charger. He's also with an amazing company. This is a new enterprise client of ours. And hey, Tim, is this right? You guys are the #1 purchase lender in Iowa. Is that right? Tim Lamb. Hey, Jacob, I can't control GoToMeeting. Would you mind making sure Tim's unmuted?
Confirm, Dave, Tim is unmuted.
Okay, so Tim, jump in when you get a chance. Also, his lender out of over 13,000 banks and credit unions, is ranked #1 on a return on membership. So it just tells you really well run, really has the heart of serving their customers, their members. So great organization. Tim, are you unmuted? Can you join the call? Or if not, you may want to call back in. And Jacob, if you could manage that and bring him back into the conversation.
No problem at all.
All right. So hopefully we will be able to bring our other guest in. Bryan, is your mic working okay?
Sorry, I can't hear you. No, I'm teasing. Can you hear me?
Love it, brother. Like humor.
It's always fun to be left hanging here on, when you have several hundred people listening in.
Yeah, it's all good. They're all friends, so I like it, keeping it fun. Well, Bryan,
they know it's live, right?
Exactly. This is transparent dialogue, man. So, Tim, we hope to hear from you soon. If you can hear me, we hope to hear you soon. But in the meantime, we'll keep it rocking. So this is the second time Bryan has been a leader in the mortgage coach community. He is someone who, I've tracked his work and his content for over a year now, and just a science of selling kind of guy. His specialty is how to write and use emails in a really quality, really professional, but in a way that gets read. They get open, action gets taken on them, and he's just going to share some of the insights that he's learned both personally, and again, he's got a community of B2B salespeople that pay him for workshops and advice, has a membership platform. Tim Lamb actually signed up for it. I think there was probably about 15 to 20 Mortgage Coach members the last time we had Bryan as a guest that signed up for his membership program to be, to learn from him. He's also a pretty adventurous guy. I always try to bring photos about who people are from just a human being perspective. And Bryan, it's pretty obvious you like to live large. And I love this shot bungee jumping. Where was this, by the way?
Yeah, so I was in South Africa, and it's, I don't know if you had the shot, there's a shot of the bridge. It's like the longest bridge jump in the world, and it was my second bungee jump. I thought I was way out in South Africa on this thing, and it ends up being 60 stories. So if you imagine jumping off a 60-story building, and I'm standing there on the edge, the first time I've ever done a bungee jump, and it's like the longest bungee jump ever. And just thinking, everything in my body was telling me, don't do this. And it was quite a thrill. It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, I'm jealous. I have bungee jumped a few times, but it's always been not as cool. It's been off of a crane. It's been about a third as high. So this is on my bucket list. I can't wait to do a real bungee jump in New Zealand or some remote place off of an amazing bridge. So it's on my list. Can't wait. And again, I noticed a little bit of helicopter skiing. So you're a man who likes to live big. Where was this one at?
So that was in British Columbia. I was a ski bum in between, my first couple jobs out in Park City, Utah, and threw together, once I could afford, $1,000 a day to go helicopter skiing. It's awesome. It's just a great trip. Once in a lifetime that I've ended up doing a couple times.
Right on, man. Well, we got a lot in common. We like to do fun things. Also noticed that you're a new father, and I hear you've got another kid coming. So not only are you an amazing guru and you bring a lot of science and selling, it looks like you're building quite a family.
We're working on it.
Good. Well, for anybody who missed you last time on the coaching call, if you wouldn't mind just sharing some highlights around, why do we want to listen to you? We're loan officers.
Yeah.
What about your story, is going to make it valuable for us to connect with realtors and be better, more successful salespeople? What do you have to say to that?
So, I firmly believe that you're not born a salesperson, right? And it's a skill you can learn. And what I ended up doing, I always worked for startups. I was always selling a $50,000 to $1 million type technology or software to Fortune 100 companies. And I struggled for years. Like, I hated cold calling. We had no leads. I was trying to influence 50-something-year-old executives at McDonald's and Best Buy and Home Depot. And in the whole process, the whole rejection was just, the whole thing was awful. Ended up trying to start a business, went into debt, moved to New York City, and I always read and I always tested. And what I found was I always used email to get my foot in the door. And I ended up developing a whole emailing system, ended up doing about $20 million in new business, and just really crushing it, compared to everyone else on our teams, and ended up really doing well, making a bunch of money so I could afford to do all the things I want to do, because once you know how to close deals, the last thing you're thinking about is closing deals, right? You're thinking about all the fun things you can now do, or the freedom and flexibility you have. And yeah, so that's kind of my story. I mean, there's the one thing we talked about last time, which was about cold emailing, getting your foot in the door, looking for email templates and things like that. So the free stuff that we talked about is on breakthroughemail.com. So breakthroughemail.com, and if you go to /mortgage coach, you can download the templates there. So breakthroughemail.com /mortgage coach. There's a 9-step to write a cold email. There's also a permission to close your file, which is, a follow-up technique for people to use. Is that a good intro?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great setup. And I just leave it with B2B selling is highly competitive. You're selling to decision makers that literally train their gatekeepers to keep you out. And so, if you can learn how to break through that wall, you definitely bring some game to help us get through to a realtor. So to me, guys, it's always important to learn from the best within our industry, but it's equally important to learn from the best outside of our industry. So that's why I've invited Bryan to this call for the second time, because I just think he brings a lot of wisdom and perspective that really matters to us. So, hey, Tim, have you had a chance to jump back on this call?
I'm here, Dave. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, man. We missed you. I don't know how much you heard that beautiful introduction that I gave for you, and I just put the softball up there. I mean, it was like a T-ball. I mean, I didn't even pitch it to you. All you had to do is just swing, and you disappeared. Did you hear me do that?
It was so good I had a tear in my eye, but I couldn't speak, so I don't know what the deal was. I wasn't logged in properly or something. So thanks for setting up on the tee. Yes.
All right. So now you were on that last call. I showcase you in calls a lot because you have you've got great emails. The way that you communicate is professional. It's simple. It drives action. First of all, I guess just you signed up for Bryan's service. If you could just give us a little perspective on, how important is written communication for you as a mortgage professional, and then, share some perspectives how you're doing it.
Sure, Dave. First of all, just thanks for allowing me to hopefully share a little bit of value with you. But I just want to let everybody know on the call, I'm no different than anybody else is. I'm out there in the trenches every day trying to earn loans and build relationships and so forth, and just trying to continually get a little bit better. And I am not like an English major. That's probably my least impactful form of communication. So the stuff that I am utilizing, I've actually just stole it and I'm using it from other people. So I'm trying to always get better in that world as far as always tracking, figuring out what's better. And Bryan's stuff just connected with us because we utilize email a lot in our industry, and I wanted to figure out how to get better, essentially.
Good. Now, so are you a naturally gifted writer? I mean, is writing an email something you're gifted at, do you think, and you like doing?
No, that is not. I'm much more of a conversational communicator than I am actually writing an email or writing a letter or anything like that. I'd much rather pick up the phone and communicate that way versus typing it out on these emails. So the emails that I utilize, I've had for the last few years, and I keep swiping, adapting, tweaking, and changing, trying to make them a little bit better, but that is not my strong suit.
Got it. Well, I think that's important because email communication is more important than ever in our business model. Follow-up is important. I do, as we tee up today's call, want to get some perspectives of how much follow-up are you guys doing? How many times do you follow up with a realtor to get a meeting? How many times do you follow up with a home buyer to win the deal? I'd like to get some feedback as to how much follow-up folks on this call are doing. So again, answer one is never. By the way, so far everybody's put a goose egg there. I don't believe that. I think there are truly some salespeople on this call that do not follow up. So far, the 1 out of 3 is winning, which does not shock me. I've got 16% of you that have said never. I never give up, which to me, I like that answer. That's kind of me. But 55% of you have voted. So again, let's get this number above 70% of you vote. I want to know where the psychology, where the commitment is, and what the standards are from a follow-up perspective. Everybody in this call. So that 61% of you have voted. Come on, let's move on and get this vote in. Let's push it above 70%. If you have not voted, please vote. And here's the answers, guys. So Tim and Bryan, we're going to be, leading for the rest of this call. And first of all, Bryan, any surprises how these results came out? Is this surprising or shocking to you?
So the thing that this doesn't surprise me. The thing that surprised me is when I started working with sales reps and companies, in email, how much follow-up is an issue. And this is about a year and a half. I had created this whole system where I don't have to follow up, and I didn't realize how much time everyone else is spending on follow-up, and really how simple of a mistake it is, and that it's actually not an email mistake. So the numbers look right, but just the whole follow-up idea in general is just a huge problem that I've seen. That the buyers, they don't like it, and the sellers, it's not fun for them either because they're constantly chasing somebody.
Got it. Well, a couple of things I want to make sure come out of this call is, Tim, part of what I think makes you successful, confident, and passionate is that you just have this vision of who you are in the space. It's not a loan officer, it's an educator who happens to be in the mortgage business. And you have this goal that I need my clients to see things that they do not know so that I can help them make informed decisions. And to me, that is the why you are a great mortgage coach leader, why I invited you to this call. It's not just what you do, it's why you do it. Because if you don't have enough why, I don't care, you can't fake it. Your what you do, it's just not going to be as compelling and valuable. So, Bryan, you're going to cover a lot of different content, but I do want to start with just kind of breaking down some of Tim's emails. Tim, why don't you set up the email, share what's the why you send it, what you're trying to accomplish, and then Bryan, why don't you deconstruct it, provide some coaching, what's good about it, what could be better about it, and then we'll get into some broader concepts. Tim?
All right, so the setup on this is I have just started utilizing Edge Live more in my business. And it's the 4 or 5 conversations I've had in the last couple of weeks with Edge Live have been very impactful. So Bryan, just so you're aware of it, it's kind of a screen share tool where I can be in my office and someone else can be in their office, and I can show them loan products and tools, and it moves on their screen as it's moving on my screen. So this is an email that I had sent out to Tom specifically because I had met with Laurel face-to-face, and I was following up with them with 3 or 4 different loan options. And then I was able to get Tom on the phone and then be able to, I guess, digest what was in that Edge report. And it was just hugely impactful to be able to have that conversation with the data in front of me. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm trying to get them to review the information up front, and then so they're prepared at 10 a.m. when our next appointment is going to be via phone, so that way we can make a strong education push and make sure they have good, great informed information to make that loan decision.
So let's just back up. What's the subject line you're using?
Subject line is, I put options, I think is what I put in here.
Okay. And let's just take a couple steps back just to understand how you got to this point. So you met with Tom, or you met with Laurel in person?
I met with Laurel in person, correct.
Okay. And how long was that meeting?
Probably 45 minutes.
Husband and wife?
They are husband and wife, yes.
And why wasn't Tom in that meeting?
He got called into a business meeting, and they needed to get their stuff done, but he wasn't able to meet.
Okay, and who's the decision maker between the two of them?
He definitely is.
Okay, so you're meeting with the person who's not the decision maker.
Correct, initially.
Okay, and is there a reason you didn't just reschedule it when they're both available?
For this specific scenario, they had already bought a house and they needed to get their financing started. So I met with her even though he wasn't available at that point. Typically,
Okay.
I'd meet with them together.
Hey,
And
hey,
go ahead.
I want to jump in real quick because, Brian, I do want to set the table. I know where you're going with this, which, first of all, I think it's great. Continue with your B2B training because, decision makers everything. I mean, if this was a big enterprise deal, I mean, we would reschedule the meeting to make sure the decision maker's in. But in the mortgage experience, it's not uncommon that, number one, you don't know who the decision maker is until this meeting, and two, that they're not. I mean, it's like getting mom and pops into meetings is like herding cats. And that's also the case with realtors. I mean, buying your mortgage is a very turbulent, unorganized process. So one, I wanted to give that background to you. And then two, part of the edge strategy is that we give a link. So even though the wife wasn't in it, the decision maker, and by the way, sometimes you'll think the husband's a decision maker, but it's really his father-in-law that's bought 20 properties that thinks he knows more than us, who, it's his third surprise advisor that either screws up the deal or costs us the deal. So even when you think you know who the decision maker is, you don't. So part of our strategy is giving this link so that everybody involved in the decision has it. So I want to give you that framing, but continue with your questioning, and I can't wait to hear where you land.
Yeah, so a couple things. So you're right. Like in that first meeting, you don't know who the decision maker is. There's a simple question to ask in the meeting. It's probably like the 6th out of 8 steps, and I kind of listed out all the different steps in the meeting, which we can talk about. But the question that I always ask is, hey, say you wanted to work with us. What does your decision-making process look like? And they'll say, well, what do you mean? And then I'll say, well, is anybody else involved? Because what I want to do is I actually want to future pace how they're going to make the decision, who's going to be involved, and then start talking about when they'd like to make a decision by, when they'd like to have the loan done, and then we can work backwards. So in that first meeting, I want to be caught off guard later on in the process if their uncle, who is an expert and already has a guy, is going to kind of throw a wrench into the whole deal. I always felt that as the seller, it's my job to control the whole process and to also have a lot of just to really control the process, just to know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and that's really the goal of that first meeting. It's great that you got the meeting with Tom after the fact, right? And that you understood that Tom's the true decision maker in this. Now, if somebody in, say, a Fortune 500 VP of marketing, what they'll say is, let's say, hey, say you wanted to work with us. I'm not saying you do, but if you did, what does your decision-making process look like? And they'll say, oh, well, I'll take your proposal and, I'll have to, have my boss take a look at it, and then we'll have to get legal. And, once they said they have to, have somebody else look at it, I know that they're not the decision maker. So if it's a husband and wife team or there are other players, we have to understand that. And, you also want to know, who else they're looking at, right? So in every meeting I go on, I'm assuming, especially in this space, that they're talking to 2 or 3 other firms. And, the phrase that I always use is, so who else are you looking at? Very assumptive and very conversational. And if you ask a direct question, more times than not, they'll actually tell you. Oh, we're talking to, a couple other firms. It's okay, well, great. So which firms are you talking to? They'll say, XYZ firm, ABC firm. And then the key for me there is to understand what they like and dislike about each one. Oh, great. So so what do you like about XYZ? And they'll, oh, they seem pretty good, whatever. What don't you like about them? because understanding what they like and dislike about the other firms and the competition is absolutely the key to being able to, one of the keys to being able to influence them. Because, I mean, how often are you guys going against, other firms in the space? Is it the majority of the time?
Every day, Brian. I would say the consumer is probably shopping on probably every deal, at least starting out in the process. They are looking for their partner, but they don't know who that is at this point. So they always typically talk. And sometimes real estate agents are referring maybe 2 or 3 partners to say, hey, go talk to these 3 guys. I've worked with them before, which is a whole other process that we need to work on as lenders, but typically they're looking at a couple.
And what's your process for understanding what they think about the competition? Are you asking those questions?
I was writing down your questions, and I don't think I'm that specific, but yes, okay. I'm trying to figure out if who they're working with, because I know my competition pretty well and what their strengths and weaknesses are. But I have not asked them what do they like best or what do they didn't like best. I guess that's a huge question for me.
It's less important that we know the weaknesses of our competition and the strengths of our competition. It's more important that we check in with the borrower on what they think. Right? So now, if they say something and if what they say is wrong, we can address that. But if you think about, 45-minute meeting or an hour meeting, this is one of the points in the meeting where this is like the go or no-go. Are you going to be able to persuade or influence this person? Because every single time you're up against somebody else. So, hey, who else you're looking at? And literally that's the exact phrase that we always, it's like one of those magic phrases. It just catches them off guard. And then for each one that they mention, you have to say they say like 4 or 5 companies, you have to prioritize like which one is, which are the leaders, and then what they like about them, what they dislike about them. And then also in the meeting that you have with them near the end of the meeting, hey, what do you like about us? And then you ask, what don't you, based on what we talked about today, what don't you like about us? And very often that question surprises me because I think this meeting's going great, and then I ask that question, and they're like, well, I'm not really sure that you can deliver on, whatever. And then I'll have to address that because all the follow-up, all the proposals, all the presentations, if I don't address the elephant in the room, their elephant, and find out what that is, if there is one, I'm not going to be able to get that deal. And I better do it in that first meeting and really find out. The other problem I would imagine you guys have is you educate your buyers, and then they go out and talk to 2 or 3 other people, and the conversation that you had in the beginning is very different than whatever's happening later on in the process as they're actually coming to the point of making a decision. Does that happen?
I would say yes, Brian, very much. I always prefer to be the second or the third lender that they've talked with, so that way I can go through your questions. I don't do it as specifically as you have done here, but I always try to figure out what they haven't learned or what they did like or didn't like from the other lenders to be able to solve that problem. So now they're 50% educated, and now I can pinpoint exactly where their weakness is or what their needs are and be able to answer those questions. So yes, it happens quite often.
One of the questions I'd ask really early on in the process is, have you talked to any other firms, or kind of where are you in the process? And we've talked to a couple of firms, and if they've talked to a couple of firms, well, why are you still talking to more firms, right? If they've already talked to 2, like, well, what is it that you're not getting from these guys that you're looking for? So if I was doing a big software deal, and they're, talking to the VP of IT, and very often these guys will go out to RFP, which is a request for proposal, and, they'll get, like, say, 5 quotes. If they've already gotten 4 quotes, why aren't these quotes, good enough? Why do you need to get a 5th? Because that delta is what we need to deal with, and if they can't come up with a good reason, many times, because the quoting process is arduous on my part, I wouldn't even participate. It's like, listen, I can't think of a reason why you go with us, because you already sound, like you're pretty happy with company 2. Why would you even consider somebody else? So sometimes, like within selling, you're actually selling against yourself. This technique is called the pendulum technique, and you're kind of pushing them away to get them to come back to you. But with regard to Tim, is this helpful?
Yeah, very. I love that question. Why are you still talking with other firms, or why are you talking with me today versus the other three people we talked about?
Yeah, like why are you still looking? You know,
yeah.
if you've already got three quotes, three people, like what is it that they're not giving you that you want?
I think that's a great question to differentiate yourself first of all, to try to solve their needs, because they're looking for something that they haven't delivered. The other lender hasn't delivered, whether it's product or it's just comfort or personality, whoever it may be. I think that's a great question to take it to the second level. I think sometimes we ask very superficial questions in our industry, and I think this is one of those questions that takes it deeper and makes them really make a decision. All right, is this the guy that I want to use for my financing going forward?
Yeah, it gets you to the core of whatever it is their issue. So people buy for three reasons. They have a desire for something, they have a frustration, or they have a fear, right? All of them are some level of pain. So if they've already talked to 2 or 3 firms, like what's their frustration? What's their fear? What's their desire that's not being met? And let's get to the core of that, because that's where the decision is going to be made. And the decision isn't going to be made for other reasons. The first or second guy who are talking to them, this is your chance to get like your hooks into them. Now, with regard to this email, so you met with Laurel, and then you called Tom. Is that what happened?
That's correct. Yep.
Now, when you met with Laurel, why didn't you set up a meeting with Tom while you were meeting with Laurel?
That's a great question, because I didn't know exactly the details of why Tom was gone until Laurel got there, and then I followed up with him and sent this off to him, and then we scheduled the time for 10 o'clock the next day to talk about it.
Now, are you sending like a calendar invite for the meeting?
Yes, I use Outlook all the time for calendar invites. Correct.
Okay, and so you showed up. The agreement was that Tom and Laurel were going to be there. You show up, it's just Laurel, hey, Tom's not going to be here. And then what happened?
So then Laurel and I went through the pre-qualification process, got them to where they needed to, talk through some loan options with Laurel on what she thought they wanted on the financing side of things. She said we need to talk to Tom about the decision on which one of these is the best solution for us. That's when I followed up and set up that email with Tom, or that phone meeting with Tom, and sent out this email to him.
But you got off the phone with Laurel, and then you called Tom, right? You didn't schedule it with Laurel while you're on the phone.
Correct. Yep. I met with Laurel in person, face-to-face, and then I called Tom after that to schedule a time to meet.
Okay. Typically, the follow-up error that everybody makes is in that initial meeting, they don't get the agreement with the buyer for that next step on that initial meeting, right? So if I'm on the phone, or if I'm meeting with Laurel, oh, hey, sorry Tom couldn't make it. It sounds like he wants to be involved and we need to loop him on this. Why don't we, since we're both here, why don't we schedule a time where you, Tom, and I can all talk on the phone? Do you have access to his calendar? Do you know like a good time that we could talk? Now, if you don't have access, now say she's like, I don't have access to his calendar. Well, how does it sound if like we just put together something tentative? If we need to change it, we can. But at least we have something on the books, because I know this is important to you. You want to get this thing done pretty soon. So anytime I'm in a meeting with anybody, I always have a specific measurable next step. Now, the other variation is like you've gone to the meeting with Tom and Laurel, and they're like, hey, can you send me that report? Right? And you're like, great, I'm happy to send you the report. When would you like to receive it by? So I always want to test their motivation on like when they want to receive something and when they're actually going to commit to looking at it. Because I could think this is hot and a huge priority, but they're going on a vacation to Turks and Caicos, and which we're going in 2 weeks. And it's raining outside, so that's what I was thinking about. But sorry, this is like I'm just telling you everything that's going on in my mind right now.
Keep it real, man.
So that person's now leaving, or they don't get that how much they have to do right now to get to the closing. So I want them to say, okay, well, send it to me on Thursday. Great, I'll send it to you on Thursday. When do you want to review it together? So I know that they're going to get this next thing, and then the next step after that. So I'm always two steps, maybe 3 steps out in front. And that's also, we develop that about 70% of the way through the first meeting to understand their whole decision-making process, and we're future pacing this deal. So I'm going to send it to you by Thursday. You're going to review it. You need a few days to review it. We're going to talk again on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. We're all going to be on the phone. And so I send them my thing, and like you have here, like you already have the call with them, that next time. So that's, to me, that's like perfect. So what was your issue with this deal?
No, I secured this deal. Dave asked what emails I was utilizing to utilize Edge and to help solidify the transaction, and this is just one of them that I've been using recently. So this deal is in the books and ready to go.
Let me jump in real quick. So, this has been a great breakdown. I just want to make sure Mortgage Coach members, you caught some things. I just think it's always awesome when we bring in someone, smart, wise, from another space, really help us kind of uncover some things that we just take for granted. My first note was how important it is to really be curious about what matters to other people. In our business, because we're talking to so many different home buyers, and in some ways, every loan is just a, same deal, different people, and we just get caught up on thinking we know it all. And I thought that question you said is what matters to them. And I just want everybody on this call to be honest with yourself and think about the interviews that you have with home buyers and realtors. How curious are you really as to what matters most with them? And I want you to almost put it on a pendulum versus how important it is to you that you're going to tell them how different, how unique, how great you are. And I want you to almost kind of do a weighting balance. Are you more curious, or are you more interested in telling them your elevator pitch, how great you are, what you think is your unique value proposition, or is the weight on curious? I really want to know what matters to them. I really want to know who the decision maker is. I really want to know how they're making this decision. What's heavier? And I'd just be willing to bet that if a lot of people are really honest with themselves, telling our elevator pitch, telling how great we are, telling how unique our products are and how low our rates are and how we're available 24/7, and no one cares more than me, and I've been doing this for 20 plus years, I just have a feeling that that's heavy. So one, that was a good lesson, good takeaway. I hope people got it. I thought, coming from a B2B expert, B2B selling, you live and die by controlling the sale and getting confirmation of next steps. You cannot be casual about it, and you don't get second chances. So I thought that was a good takeaway. Tim, I think you probably took it away, but it looks like the email is fantastic. It looks like you could have, been a little more of a leader in saying, hey, the headline is follow up, looking forward to our meeting at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. Here's the link to make sure you have available as we're having that conversation. You just could have, from a challenge or sale perspective, there's a little more leadership and a little more of a tie down. So by the way, we got a couple more emails and we only have 20 more minutes. Anything else on this email that you want to make sure, Bryan, to communicate? Or Tim, is there any questions you have? Let's do 2 more minutes on this, and then let's roll into the next email.
So I just wanted to ask, the subject line is always a unique thing that we're always trying to work with. So can you just give our group what are those subject lines that we should use, or positive things or negative things in that subject line that's going to help us get those emails opened? This is a pretty easy one. The clients knew that it was coming. It's all set up. But what should be in that subject line?
So the subject should be a very simple, should be the subject. right? So this is, your, I would call it your home loan report,
Okay.
right? Because it's about them, it's not about us. And now, dear Tom and Laurel, I wouldn't write dear. I write emails like I would write to a friend.
Okay.
So, dear Tom and Laurel, great talking with you today. I'd say, now, did you talk to Tom and Laurel? I don't think you did. You just talked to Tom.
I talked to Tom on the phone, but I met with Laurel in person. Yeah.
Okay, so there's some level of you got to loop the other people. Like Tom and Laurel, this is, in follow-up to our conversation, here is your home loan report. Now, are they clear on what they're going to get in this home loan report? Have you already explained what's going to happen?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so I would say, here's your home loan report. This outlines, boom, 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 whatever that is. As far as next steps, I'll talk to you, or this is the first draft of your home loan report. Everything that we do is a draft because I want them to feel like this is a working document that they're going to change, or this is a working report. They have multiple options. It's about them selecting it, and really what I want them to do is I want them to co-create it with me. So if they have a couple different options, everything's a draft, right? This isn't the proposal. This isn't the final thing. And I would also send them a calendar invite. Did you send them a calendar invite?
Yes.
Okay. And how long was the calendar invite for?
30 minutes.
Okay. Is that enough time?
Yes.
Okay. And what's going to happen after this? Do you, like, once they look at it, are you clear what, how they're making the decision?
I was not clear at this point on how they were making the decision, but after talking with Tom, then I knew what the details were in that 30-minute conversation around this EDGE report.
In the next conversation you had with Tom.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would say this email is pretty decent. The mistakes happened in the meetings with Tom and Laurel, where you could have made them more effective, because you found out who else they're talking to, you found out how they're making the decision, you found out like when they all needed that by, but other than that, it's pretty good. Let's go to the next email.
Yeah. So again, I just want to make sure everybody connected that. Some things need to be repeated. Awesome subject line is your home loan report. Make sure you connect with people as a friend. Don't do dare. Just always. You want to be a friend as quick as you can, communicate like a friend, and how important it is that you're co-creating this report. So call that out from a draft perspective. And again, always be driving the meeting. Make sure you've got a calendar reminder, and make sure that you've allocated enough time. At this point, they've invested in the sales process. Make sure that you schedule enough time. You're better off getting 45 minutes and doing it in 30 minutes. Don't run into a hard stop. So anyway, it's great. Man, we spent a lot of time on that, but I think we unpacked a lot of wisdom and a lot of value. So I love it. So and I think these next couple might go quicker just because they're more of the same. But this is, one, Tim, describe what you're doing, how this is different than that one, and then, Bryan, break it down and give us your wisdom.
All right, so I used the same people and the same email. It's just a template that I have, so I had all that stuff available and plugged it in. So this, Bryan, would be an email that I would send after I've met with that borrower, but they didn't make a decision that day, or they're just starting in the home buying process, and I want to follow up and make sure that we've solidified their options as far as the mortgage goes. So if they've got, maybe they wanted to look at 3 different loan scenarios. So I'm sending this email to them saying, this is a recap of the conversation that we had. You are pre-qualified to buy the house. Here are the scenarios, essentially, that we talked about. And I want to just drive it home even further. Again, coming back to that education piece, so that they're well informed on what's going on with the mortgage options that we talked about.
So there was no next step.
In this scenario, I didn't have a next step because they are now going out and shopping for a house. So we're putting the mortgage together for them, saying you're approved at $300,000. Here are some options that we can do on that mortgage side of things. Your next step is to go buy a house. So for our perspective, we're kind of done at this point until they buy that house.
Okay. So is there a concern that you could potentially lose this deal between the time that you have this conversation and then they're buying the house and talking to other people and educating themselves?
I would say yes. In
Yeah.
general, I would say yes.
That would be my concern. What I would do, so it's like, hey, here's your pre-qualification. You want me to send that stuff to you? Okay, great. When you want to buy? I'm always asking that. Anytime any information is going back and forth, whether it be proposal information, pre-qualification, anything. When do you want to buy? Because I'm always testing their motivation, their timeliness, and so I would ask them that, and then I would ask them, so hey, I'll send it to you. Great, Friday, give it to you by Friday. Just as far, when would it make sense for us to reconnect on this? And they'll say, what do you mean? I'm like, well, obviously you guys are going to look to buy a house. Do you have an idea of when they want to have the house bought at this point?
Typically, sometimes you do at this point. Maybe they have a lease that's up at the end of July, so they're going to be purchasing a house in the end of June, and they got to be out of their house by July. So there's typically some timeline. Other times, they're just putting their house on the market at the same time, so they don't know when that closing is going to be or what the timing is.
So I would say, like, hey, do you know when you want to be closed, or in the next new house? They may or may not know, and then I'd say something to the effect of, well, is there any upcoming event where you would need to be, like, when I bought my house, I was having a baby. We went into a place in Chelsea, in New York City. That one fell through, and then I had like 2 months before I had, my son was being born, and like we did it lightning fast. Before that, I never, it was like a year-long process with my broker. So I would ask, is there any other kind of event that's going to happen to see if there is some motivation, and then I would work backwards to say, hey, obviously. When would it make sense for us to reconnect? And tentative, just to check in, see how it's going. So I would set that up in the first meeting, even if they're in the home buying process, even if it's a 10 or 15-minute call, and a month from now. And they'll say, oh, well, why don't you just follow up with me? And then I would respond, listen, one of the things about my job that I hate is I hate following up with people because I always feel like I'm bugging you. If it makes sense, why don't we just put something on the calendar? It can be tentative. You can cancel it if you need to. Even if it's a month or two from now, we can just do a quick check-in, and that way you have your quick check-in. There's zero follow-up that you're going to have to do, and you also have a little bit clearer picture on when they need to get in or out of that house as far as the timeline. And so that's what I would do. And then you send the report, you have the call, it's 10 minutes, it's a month from now, and you forget about them. And you know exactly where you are in the process. There's no follow-up. There's zero other follow-up that you have to do.
Okay. And Brian, from the follow-up perspective, I just wanted to ask, I typically follow up with all my pre-qualified borrowers on Thursday morning. So is it okay for me to say, hey, I do a weekly follow-up that I just call up, make sure that we're all on the same page, answer any questions that you have, may take 10 or 15 minutes each Thursday morning. Is that okay for me to call you at that time and get their opinion at that point?
Wait, so what example is that? I'm not clear.
So that is a borrower that has just gotten pre-qualified. They're out shopping for houses, and they just don't know what their timing is. They may buy in the next 30 days or 90 days, and I'm just doing kind of a tickler follow-up to make sure that I'm staying in touch with them on a weekly basis.
How do you feel when people follow up with you on a weekly basis about something?
I would say if this is an important decision on the financing side of things, I'd probably be all right with that because maybe they're first-time homebuyers and they don't know any different essentially. But I'm just curious on the follow-up piece, if that's too much, if it's not enough, or if it's just something like you mentioned that we should just set it up with them and say, hey, 2 weeks from Friday, I'll call you.
So hey guys, I'm going to jump in real quick because we've got 10 minutes left. I want to make sure we get to this next email and have plenty of time and have some wrap-up notes. Brian, I do want to weigh in on some best practices there because I've interviewed, the most successful loan officers in the business. No doubt when you have a pre-qual, also known as TBD, constant and consistent communication is critical. to Bryan's point, weekly could be too much. And at the end of the day, getting back to that curiosity point, you want to be curious. What's important to them? So, I mean, there are people that would consider that a valuable service to get a weekly call, and there are people that would be annoyed. So I think the answer is try to find out what's tailored, how often they want you to follow up. And then two, I do think if someone's in the TBD spot or pre-qualified, if you are not somehow pinging them every 2 weeks, you are risking that you're going to be at the wrong place at the wrong time and you're going to lose the deal to someone else. Hey, Bryan, any edits to that before we go to the next email?
I always design it based on the other person, right? So, hey, I have a weekly nurturing email that I send to people. Follow-up most of the time is generated from the salesperson. The receiver, it's like, what makes sense as the next step? And just ask them, like, how would you like me to connect with you? How would you, and have them tell you exactly what they want and design that, get their agreement on it, and it can save you all the, so maybe 20% want you to follow up every week. I'm guessing if you ask them, no one's going to request that. But yeah, so I just ask the person, like, hey, what makes sense as the next step? I can send you the thing. Great. After that, does it make sense if we reconnect, just touch base? Sure, you set that up. And so I prefer not to do a weekly nurturing follow-up or anything like that, because what it tells me is you're not asking the question on, what they prefer.
Okay, cool. So guys, I can't argue with that, although I would also say do let them know, because again, it is a best practice. There are a lot of 1% successful loan officers that have weekly or bi-weekly nurturing programs, but I think that advice makes sense. So we've only got 8 minutes left, and we do have some closing thoughts. Let's do 5 minutes on this last email. Tim, if you wouldn't mind setting up, give us context, and break it down. Right.
Dave's been preaching this for a long time, and I've been utilizing this a long time, and that is just copying the real estate agent on that email that I sent to Tom and Laurel on their financing options. So that way the agent knows exactly what's going on with their buyer's financing. So that way I'm trying to eliminate some questions. I'm trying to educate the agent with this email, and I'm trying to wow them that we are different than every other lender out there because we utilize the total cost analysis. So Bryan, this email is after I've copied the agent on that last email, then I follow up with this email specifically to the agent saying, hey, congratulations on working with Tom and Laurel. Here below is their financing options, so check this out so make sure that we're all on the same page. So essentially it's kind of a team building email and an information and kind of a wow differentiation tool for us.
So, okay, so you're looping the agent on what's happened, right?
Correct, yep.
And have you asked the agent how they would like to be looped?
Not in this specific scenario, but I have in others. Most agents want, the biggest thing I'd say agents have with us as an industry is lack of communication. So this communication, by providing the financing stuff and copying them on the pre-qual letter and all those types of things, are something that's lacking in our industry. So most of them would be very happy to receive this, and they don't at this point.
Okay. And when you ask them how they would like to be looped in on this stuff, like what have the agent said to you?
Most of them have said email because they're busy either with meeting with borrowers and so forth. So for me personally, email has been the #1 thing that they've said as far as follow-up and communication.
And what specifically with an email do they want?
Typically a status update is what they're looking for. They want to know where their borrower is in the process. Are they pre-qualified? What's the pre-qualification price? Once the transaction's in place, do they want to, where are you at in the process? Has the appraisal been ordered? Are we clear to fund? Are we ready to go to closing? What the status is essentially.
So how many times could they get that status throughout a typical deal?
For us, I do it once a week and give them an update every Monday on what's going on in the process.
I would, if I were, going to go in, I would just ask the agents, hey, specifically, what would you like to be looped on? And, how can I make your life easier? And get specific, because if it's about helping them convert more and they want a quick recap of, where their borrowers are throughout the process so they can help them, sign the deal, I would give them exactly what they want. However that is, right? So the better that you can serve that agent, the more they like to work with you, and the more you can help them convert their buyers and make their life easier, the more they're just going to keep giving you deals, right? So just, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to jump in. So first of all, I couldn't agree with that more. I think that's great leadership. One thing that's important to know, these links that have, one, the mortgage options, and two, the video, that realtors have never seen that before. I mean, we've created this innovation to improve their conversion rate, and so they want it. They just don't know they want it. So the only thing I want to make sure everybody's clear on, you need to make sure that this is part of your conversation. It's part of the teaching that you're providing to the realtor that, hey, there's a better way than how the industry updates you. Mm-hmm. And so there needs to be a little bit of an education around this whole concept of mortgage options, with video on mobile, so we don't have to play phone tag. There is an education around the better way of doing things. But to your point, no doubt, if they're getting this link and they don't know what it is, it's not useful to them. They have to go, oh, I've seen that, I like that, and yes, I want that. And so, Bryan, I just want to make sure you're aware this is an innovation, and they don't know they want it until they see it.
How long is the video, or how long is the page?
Mine are usually about 3 minutes or so.
Okay, and what's in the video?
So the video is my ugly mug talking to the consumer about the financing options that are behind the screen. So essentially, you see the report with the loan options behind it. The video is in front of it, and it's me talking to Tom and Laurel, in this case, about their financing options, and we're copying in the agent on that.
Okay, got it. So here are your options. I think it's if I'm the agent, I'm busy too, right? And I'm very self-important. I've got my picture on my business card. Yep. And I'd probably highlight it too, or as like a separate email. Just say, hey, here's a report. Here's the 3 bullets. They're pre-qualified for this. This is our next step with this date, and whatever else there might be. Just so it's like super simple, stupid.
Okay.
So guys, let's do this. I want to wrap some things up. By the way, Rick Cardinelli made a great suggestion. It would be great to fine-tune this email around Bryan's advice. And Tim, I know he's a coach and mentor to you, so why don't you make it a goal in the next week or two to fine-tune these emails so we can do a little bit of a before and after. We'd love to have Bryan back in some of these calls. I do want to make sure it's important to everybody. Bryan is a mentor and a coach. He's got a great online training program, does some one-on-one coachings. He's got a great system to help people create breakthrough email systems. So, Bryan, real quick, tell everybody what's at this link, breakthroughemail.com /mortgage coach. What exactly is there?
Yeah, so there it's like a cold email template, right? So if you're going to approach a realtor or you're going to approach a lawyer or some sort of partner, how do you think about that? When writing the email, if people want to go through like the actual email system, which is what Tim went through, you would go to breakthroughemail.com /pro. There's that's like a sales page. It details, it's PRO, details what is in the email system, and that's $500 to go through the training. And the other part of the training, which is kind of more what we're talking about, which is the follow-up in the meeting, how do you influence or persuade somebody? That is the second half of the training, like breakthrough sales, and that is breakthroughemail.com/upgrade. And that's actually, it's much more expensive. It's $1,500 to go through that. There's a lot more to how to approach a meeting because you're dealing with people live, and those deals can go sideways really quickly. So there's a lot more coaching, and then after people have gone through both of those programs, I actually have a group call, which is the 50K Club, but and that's it's pretty pricey. But for the right people, it's they work with me one-on-one.
Right. So guys, this has been a fantastic teaching. I want to remind everybody, what's your why? Do you have a why that's really going to drive your success? Make sure you've got a great email that you're sending to your home buyers. Make sure that you're tailoring it the way Bryan coached us today, so that no matter where they're at, home buyers want this. If they're mobile, they want to get their mortgage options in a mobile way. If they're at a desktop, they want to get it that way. It's important that you CC the realtor so that they're in the loop, but to Bryan's point, it's important that you educate them so that when they are looped in, it's something they want. They're busy people, and if they don't want it and they don't know they want it, it's not going to have the impact that you want. Tim, I am looking forward to some of your next versions around these. How are you truly getting the realtor to take action? So far, every time I get feedback daily where realtors actually respond to the email saying, this is awesome. They want it, but you got to get them there. So as a community, we need to do a better job on this. Everybody on this call, you guys have Edge. You've got a great tool. But the reason I do these calls is because tools aren't as valuable if you're not doing the right things outside of the tool. You've got to ask the right questions. You've got to truly be curious. We're here to help you. So if there's any questions or issues that you have, reach out to our team. Go to our support page online. Couple assignments I have for everybody. Make sure you watch that Todd Duncan video. Do not miss that. It's a great teaching. It's a great training. Make sure you go through it and update and edit your emails. I'd like to see what you come up with. I've seen a lot of people ask questions. If there are specific emails that you want help on, I'd just like to know what are some of the emails that you think are most valuable for Bryan and I as we do the future calls, assuming Bryan's willing to come back and teach and coach more. Let us know what kinds of emails you need help with so that Bryan can come in and give sales leadership and email leadership. Last reminders, every Tuesday, 9 o'clock, we're here. Every Thursday, 9 o'clock, we're training on the details. And every Friday, if you're new or if you have someone on your team that's new, it's basic training. How to create your first 5, how to get to 20, Edge reports, basic trainings on Friday. So Bryan, I'm grateful for the time that you took to come in and share. We are a little over our schedule. I'm grateful for the time that you took to provide some extra value and a discount for your services. Any last thoughts before we wrap up today's call?
Well, I always find it helpful if somebody just recaps whatever, like the key phrases are. Would that be helpful for everybody listening in?
Bring it.
All right. So in the meeting, your decision-making process, ask, hey, say you wanted to work with us. I'm not saying you do, but if you did, what does your decision-making process look like? When would you want to be in the house? And then working backwards into all the next steps. If you're going to send them any kind of motivation, any kind of information, proposal, like anything, when would you like to see it by? What specifically would you want it to be in it? Okay, I'll get it to you by Thursday. When does it make sense for us to review together? If somebody is kind of balking at setting up a call, hey, the thing I hate about my job the most is following up with people because I always feel like I'm bugging them. Would it be okay if we just put something tentative on the calendar, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes that we can always change? And then the competition. It's like, hey, who else are you looking at? And they'll tell you, and then what do you like about them? What don't you like about them? And then also in the end of any meeting that you meet with anybody, hey, what do you like about us? that we talked, based on what we talked about today, what do you like about us? Which is really just a setup for what I really want to know, which is what they don't like, and based on what we talked about, what don't you like about what we're doing, and find out like whatever that issue is, and just controlling the whole thing.
Love it. Love it. Tim, anything you want to add? What was your biggest takeaway, or any last thoughts on your end?
I'd say in our industry, borrower consultation conversion is where we win the business. And the questions that Bryan just laid out there that we are not asking as an industry will take your conversion rate through the roof. So, Bryan, I can't thank you enough for doing this one-on-one coaching call with me, but specifically for the whole mortgage coach arena. These questions.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost it for about 15 seconds.
Okay, so hey guys, so we're going to wrap it up. That was great teaching. Tim, not sure what happened to you. Tim, are you still there?